In 1828, a teenage boy appeared in Nuremberg claiming he had lived his entire life alone in a dark cell with no human contact. 2 assassination attempts later, he died unsolved. The mystery of Kaspar Hauser occupied the attention of European courts, philosophers, and newspapers for years. Some believed he was the lost heir to a royal house. Some believed he was a fraud. 2 things are certain. Someone tried to kill him twice, and he died before anyone found out who he was or where he had come from. On May 26, 1828, a boy of about 16 years old appeared in the streets of Nuremberg, Bavaria. He was barely able to walk. His gait was unsteady. His feet were soft and unused to ground surfaces. His legs showed no muscular development consistent with normal childhood movement. He was clutching 2 letters, one addressed to a cavalry captain named Friedrich von Wessenig, and one purportedly from his mother. The letters were strange. They referenced a boy who had been kept in isolation since birth. They gave a name, Kaspar Hauser. The cavalry captain took him in. What Kaspar could communicate, in the limited language he possessed, was extraordinary. He described living his entire life in a dark cell, approximately 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 3.5 feet tall. He had never seen sunlight. He had never seen another person. He slept on a straw bed. Each morning he woke to find bread and water. He did not know where the food came from. He had never left the cell. He had been taught one phrase in German: "I want to be a cavalry soldier, as my father was." Kaspar Hauser became a sensation. Philosophers and scientists descended on Nuremberg to study him. His perception of color, light, and space was unlike anything they had encountered in a child. He found daylight physically painful, could see in near darkness with unusual clarity, and had extraordinary sensitivity to smell. These were, researchers noted, exactly the sensory adaptations you would expect in someone who had literally spent their life in darkness. He learned language remarkably fast. He was clearly intelligent. He began to describe his cell in detail. The isolation he described, if real, represented one of the most extreme cases of childhood deprivation in recorded history, comparable to the feral children documented in subsequent centuries, but with one crucial difference. Kaspar had clearly been taught. He could write his name. He knew that horses existed. Someone had maintained his life and given him minimal knowledge, then abandoned him in a German city. In October 1829, a little over a year after his arrival in Nuremberg, a man in a black hood attacked Kaspar in his room. He survived, but with a wound to his forehead. The attacker was never identified. Kaspar Hauser was moved around, living with various guardians who had taken an interest in his case, including the English nobleman Lord Stanhope, who became obsessed with proving the boy was a fraud and worked actively to discredit him. The claims about Kaspar's identity grew more elaborate over time. Some believed he was the hereditary Prince of Baden, a child supposedly swapped at birth to remove him from the line of succession, a common royal conspiracy narrative of the period. The theory was taken seriously in some European courts. On December 14, 1833, Kaspar Hauser was fatally stabbed in the Ansbach Palace Gardens. A man had approached him with a promise of information about his origins, lured him to an isolated spot, and stabbed him. Kaspar died 3 days later. His final words were reported to be, "I didn't do it to myself." The killer was never found. The motive was never established. Kaspar Hauser died without anyone knowing who he was, where he had come from, or who had wanted him dead. Twice. Those who believed Kaspar was a fraud pointed to inconsistencies in his accounts and to the cowpox vaccination scar on his arm, a medical intervention that would have been unlikely for a child kept in a private dungeon since birth, as it would have required a doctor's visit and public health infrastructure. Lord Stanhope, who spent years investigating him, died convinced Kaspar was an elaborate hoax. Those who believed he was real pointed to the medical evidence. His physical condition on arrival in Nuremberg, soft feet, muscular atrophy, extreme light sensitivity, was genuinely consistent with long-term confinement and could not easily have been faked. The two assassination attempts argued against a simple fraud. If he were a lying runaway, there would be no reason to kill him. DNA analysis was attempted in the 2000s on preserved blood samples. The results were inconclusive and contested between different laboratories. The case of Kaspar Hauser remains unresolved after nearly 2 centuries. He appeared from nowhere, described a life that should have been impossible, attracted 2 murder attempts before he was 21, and died in a garden in Bavaria without his identity ever being established. The boy who appeared from nowhere and changed 19th century Europe. A mystery that fascinated philosophers, captivated royal courts, and generated more theories than answers, because the 2 things that would settle it, who he was and who wanted him dead, went with him into the grave. History doesn't always give us endings. Sometimes it gives us a boy in a German street who can barely walk, holding a letter to a cavalry captain with no explanation for what he is. Subscribe if you want more. See you in the next one.